and energy than I recall entering 2021, which was fairly debilitating and sobering. But I think there's real energy afoot. The theme that we want to strike today is the theme with which we actually ended 2021. You remember we called into our last several sessions indigenous elders that would enable us to remember the ancestors, to remember the wisdom of the past, to remember who we most essentially are as children of Earth, of Gaia, of Pachamama. And it was in that spirit of reverence for the ancestors, respect for the indigenous peoples who have stayed close to Pachamama, and therefore at this critical time have probably more to tell us and teach us and counsel us than maybe any other sector in the human ecology at the moment. The people that have been the most deeply vanquished are the people who carry the deepest wisdom, because they've never lost their connection with the truth about who we are, and that we're children of Pachamama, of the earth, of Gaia. So we want to strike that theme today, and we want to welcome someone who came to my attention several months ago, Elizabeth Jenkins. You'll remember we had a whole week with the Q'ero elders through the Jaguar Path, and people down there in Peru who, when the Spanish came in the 1520s, saw the handwriting on the wall and escaped high up into the Andes, and for 500 years stayed distinct and kept the connection with their roots and their spiritual traditions. And about 20 years ago came down the mountains, as it were, to warn Western society that we needed to radically change our way. Well, Elizabeth Jenkins, who's a farmer and a mother and an author of several best-selling works, has been in communication, and I would say in communion with the Q'ero people for the last 35 years. And out of that, she founded Wiracocha Foundation, and more recently, in the depths of the pandemic last year, 2021, the Global Paqo School that is motivated with a mission to bring the wisdom of the Q'ero and the ancestral spirituality into our modernity, because there's much to learn. So Elizabeth, welcome to Humanity Rising. She's going to guide us in our opening meditation. So with deep thanks for everything that you've done to bring the ancient wisdoms to our attention, I turn the program over to you.
Aloha, Jim. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be here. And I have so much gratitude for you, Jim, and all your team and what you've put together. And thank you so much. I'm so grateful just to be able to share with everyone here on this platform. And you squeaked me in really kindly and generously. So thank you for that immense generosity.
Pleasure.
And thank you for what you're doing here. It's just beautiful. I would like to further just underline everything that Jim has said in his opening words to us today. So much wisdom and beauty in those words, and truth. And to remind us all what my teachers, the Q'ero Indians, always tell us. Remember, we are only here with the blessing and the permission of Pachamama, the Apus, the forces of Mother Nature. They are the ones who organized this meeting today, here in the heart of the computer. So I want to take a moment to ask their permission and blessing to speak about them and to have them join us in this. And you can all join me. I'm sure you will. Beautiful, beautiful Mother Earth. We call you. We ask you to come, bring the delicious blessings of your nectar. Come, bathe us in all your delicious, delicious living energies. Pachamama, Mother Tierra. Come, come, receive this love that we have. Hear us call to you with all our hearts. Come, come, be with us. Come and open our hearts to you, to your message, to your beauty, to your power. We thank you and we ask your permission and blessing to meet here today on this forum here in the heart of the computer, because even this computer comes from you, Pachamama, and all of this ability to connect. Thank you, Pachamama, thank you. Thank you for organizing this meeting today with everyone here. Apus, Nustas, mountain spirits, healing forces of nature, come, come, irrigate us with your blessings. Pour your nectar down on all our hearts and all our families and all our homes across the planet. Mother Ocean, Mama Pocha, come, fill us, fill all the waters of our bodies with your purifying nectar. Come, come, Inti Taita, Father Sun, come, fill our hearts with your golden nectar, with your warm honey nectar. Open our hearts to you. Mama Kilia, Aska Mama Nusta Kuna, Mother Moon, Mother Stars, come, come, fill us with your light. Father Cosmos, open our minds to the vastness of your and awe of your amazing beauty and your infinite power. Open our minds to the vast cosmos. My Rualkuna, Hampi, Mauna Loa, Mauna Ahuakea, mountain altar to the sky. Come, come, Efumai, Elemai, come. Nawahine Okekai, woman that is the sea, come, come. Spread your love all over us. Let us swim in your nectar, in your beautiful waters, in your depth and your mystery. With my breath, I offer you my love, my will, my heart. Come, come. Apu kolalai, apu kohala, tutu pele. Pele honuame akila uea. Homai, hele mai. Come, come. Come to us. Spread your nectar all over us. You, creator of the land, tutu pele, pele honuamea. Magnificence that you are, builder of the earth. Come. Receive the blessings. Come, come. Receive our love. Apu, makanao. Apu, pu'ue nuhe. Come, come. Mountains of my home, of Ka'u district. Come, come. Come share with us today. Be here, be present. Hihawahine o anai ho o maun. Hihawahine o miloli'i. Hihawahine o punalu'u. Come, beautiful weavers of the ancient patterns. You dragon women guardians of the Big Island. Come, come. Mo'o wahine o ha'ao. Mo'o wahine o kawa. Mo'o wahine o kalai. Come, homai, hele mai. Come, come. Be with us here. Pachamama ka'u. Pachamama kio laka'a. Pachamama pu'u maka'a. Come, come. Pachamama Ailani orchards of my farm. Thank you for the blessing of all this food and how you take care of my family, my animals, the beautiful birds and sheep and our peasants and turkeys, chickens, and our donkeys, dogs and cats. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Pachamama, thank you. Jason, Kolgai Anyai. Okay. Woo. Well, I'm delighted to have you here with me. I hope that you are all calling on all of the beautiful forces of nature of your own lands all across the earth, because this is such a magnificent place that we inhabit. Our Pachamama. I am delighted to be here with you today and to share with you a little bit about my journey to how I met the Q'ero, how I became involved in this path. It all started a long, long time ago. Makes me feel a little old. Uh, I also want to thank all my teachers, the blessings from them, their wisdom, and the Q'ero Indians of Peru for their 500 years of resistance. The Q'ero are on their ancestral lands that they've been on for 1,000 years. The magic of the Q'ero maintaining their wisdom and their connection is that they never knew there was a conquest. It's really quite beautiful to think about. They were up in their, between about 11,000 and 14,000 feet in their traditional lands that they've always been on. And the Spanish conquest came and they didn't really find out about it until about 60 or 70 years later, when a group of the Spaniards, colonizers, were looking for the lost city of Paititi and actually came up to the Q'ero villages. And that's the city, the Inca city of gold, that was really referring to wisdom, but the Spanish thought it was actual gold. And they came looking for that on the Inca trails. And that's when there was this discovery that, oh goodness, something's happened. So they have had really uninterrupted traditional knowledge. They've had contact with the West. With the Spanish landholders for probably 60 or 70 years, but they haven't lost their traditional patterns of living. This is the beauty of it. So I want to tell you about, it all began for me with what Jung would call a numinous experience. I was working on my PhD in clinical psych at the California Institute of Integral Studies, if some of you may know that school in California, beautiful school. And I was getting a little, though it's an amazing school, I was feeling a bit stretched with the whole idea of the DSM-3. At the time, it was the DSM-3, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and how that was a litany of everything that was wrong with us. And I was really interested, well, who's made the yardstick? Where's the definition of a healthy, happy, well person? So we started to become really interested in other cultures, and it led me to take a trip to Peru, where my best friend went off to study with the shamans. And she called me about 6 months later, just as I was in the thick of kind of academic angst with all of the mental knowledge that I was trying to digest in my PhD program, and feeling that something was missing. She called and said, "Elizabeth, it's really interesting. I think you better get down here." And that was the beginning. So I went to Peru in 1988 and was so profoundly impacted by the land itself and the place and the people that I ended up quitting my PhD, leaving my fiance, leaving selling everything I owned and moving to Cusco, where I would get up every morning and say, I've been in a rational cage for so long. Let me follow my intuition. And I would go out every morning and let myself be guided by an inner knowledge instead of an outer knowledge. And this was just a delightful experience. It was like a game. Let's see what will happen today. Oh, I should turn left on the street. Okay, go left. Let's find out what happens. And I'd never done anything like this before. Grew up in a very academic family and a mathematician father. So this was very out of the box. I ended up being led to a woman who was a healer. She was doing the traditional egg diagnosis, where they rub a fertile egg over your body with a number of prayers and break that into a glass of water. And she read my egg and she said, oh, you are not a tourist. You have been invited here by the Apus, the mountain spirits, and you have not greeted them. And I thought, oh my God, how impolite. But I don't know how to greet them. And she said, you have to find an Andean priest. And I thought, priest? How is a priest going to help me? She said, an Andean priest is a priest of nature. And I said, okay. So I went home and I looked, right? There was no listing in the phone book for Andean priest. There was no way for me to find them. I went and asked all around Cusco to the people I had gotten to know, and nobody could really tell me anything. So like a good girl from Minnesota, when nobody can help you, you got to do things yourself, right? So I sat down to meditate on the mountain that was right in facing my window of my little apartment that I had rented. And this was a mountain being called Apu Ausangate, who everyone agreed is the boss mountain of the Cusco area. And so I lit my candles, I sat down in Cusco it was about 9 o'clock at night. And Cusco is very high elevation for those of you who haven't perhaps been there. It's very, very cold at night, very warm in the day, very cold at night. So they have these big wooden shutters. You can close your wooden shutters. So I had my wooden shutters locked and the door closed, and I had this little electric burner that was my heater. It's pretty chilly. So I'm sitting on the floor meditating in front of this shuttered window, and I see in my mind's eye this enormous man sitting on top of a mountain. And I look at him and my psychological self kicks in, right? And I say, oh, this is an image in my mind. And just as I say that, he kind of gets this frown on his face and goes like this. And this freezing cold physical wind blows over my body. It was not, I imagine, a wind. It was a physical wind that could not have entered my room. And this immediately stopped my rational mind, and I found myself trembling and face down, shaking and weeping on the ground and saying, oh, excuse me, Lord Apu. Excuse me, sir. I'm just a gringa. I don't know the ways of this place, but I want to ask your permission and blessing. And he got this smile. It was like the sun came out. And I felt, again, a physical, visceral, warm kiss and warm breath right here on my forehead. And after that, my whole body relaxed. I felt a complete sense of peace inside me. I stopped trembling. And I sat up from my meditation. I had kind of noted in my journal, and an hour, I thought maybe a few minutes had passed. It was about an hour and 10 minutes had gone by. So this extraordinary encounter with one of the sacred beings of the Andean world was actually the ticket that allowed me to enter into a group of people working with an Alto Misayok, an Andean priest that had never had a white person before. But because of this experience, I was able to go out into Cusco and meet all these people the next day. You know, the next day after I kind of woke up and I thought, oh my goodness, you know, the rational mind is intractable. And so, oh, what a weird dream I had. Oh, but that wasn't really a dream. It was a real experience. But I don't know how to hold that. I didn't know yet. So I went out into Cusco and met all of these extraordinary people, and I was taken to this group of Quechua Indians that looked at me very oddly, like, what are you doing here? You white person, you know. I never felt so glowing white as in that moment of entering that group and feeling, you know, how much of an outsider I was. But when I explained the experience I had, they said, oh, well, then of course you have to be here. The Apus told us you were coming. They told us a psychologist from North America would be coming to work with us. But the people there said we all expected it would be a man. So that was a bit of a surprise. So that was the beginning of this wild ride in which the word impossible shattered for me permanently. If you know, in the Andean, well, in the whole Peru region, there's three traditions. There's the coastal tradition, which uses the San Pedro cactus, which is as a psychogenic substance. There's the jungle tradition, of course, in Iquitos area, where they use the ayahuasca. The mountain tradition there's no psychogenic substances. It's just the ritual. And this is my way because I don't even take aspirin. So no, I'm very super sensitive. So there's no psychogenic substances involved. There's just the ritual and the direct perception of the living energies. So I encountered a lot of things that would have been considered impossible to my previous worldview. And I also found a tradition that was just amazingly rich, very mystical, and very, very profoundly connected to nature. Working with these people for about a year, there was a lot of discord that started to happen. There was a lot of conflict. There was, oh, you have to go and do this. And if anybody that's been in traditional cultures, you know that there's this level of activity that goes on where, what can we say? It's the level of conflict and challenge and this kind of experience. And I actually left there very disappointed and having to go through this feeling of, wow, there's this amazing mystical culture, but then there's this infighting and I don't like this. And this is not something that I feel connected to. I don't want to go over and do something to the rival shaman. That's not who I am. So I left. But with this deep connection and knowing that there was more, I knew it. And at that time working with them, they told me there is this group of pure Incas that live up in the mountain. And we want to try to go there one day. So I had this idea that Q'ero were there. They told me, I didn't know the name, but I knew they were there. And I was lucky enough to come back. Peru just called me back about a year later. And I had the amazing good fortune to run into a fantastic and marvelous human being named Juan Núñez del Prado Bejar, Juan Victor Núñez del Prado. And I told him what happened to me. I had been walking around with this experience, going to, in the Mecca of spiritual Mecca of San Francisco, asking everyone, do you know about this? Can you explain this to me? I had this experience of meeting with the Apus, and I can't explain it. And can you help me? And no one knew what I was talking about. No one could give me any insight. So I went back to Peru and was hooked up with Juan Núñez del Prado, who I met him in the main square, the Plaza de Armas of Cusco. And he listened to my experience and he explained it to me in absolute perfect detail. He said, you have had a strong contact with the path, but you've been working with teachers of the third level. The third level is the level of conflict. It's like a spiritual adolescence, right? We all know what that feels like, where there's cliques and in groups and out groups, and some people are special and some are not. This is always the great test of, are you in a group that's at the fourth level, or are you still working at that third level? Nothing wrong with the third level, right? Adolescence, we all have to go through it. There's no way to get beyond it without going through it. And I think a lot of us have seen a lot of spiritual teachers kind of rise and then fall because they are not able to get through this level of a kind of an adolescence. So Juan said, he told me, I had the good fortune to begin my path with two teachers of the fourth level, Don Benito Coreuaman and Don Melchor Deza, and Don Andres Espinosa of the Q'ero Nation. Juan then proceeded to explain to me this beautiful prophecy, this amazing spiritual tradition that has to do with let's say, expanding our fit capacity, our ability to resonate with ever larger spheres, with ever larger realms of the Pachamama. So, for example, at the first level, in our terms, at the first level, we understand our identity as the sons or daughters of our parents, of our mother and father, and we identify with our ayu, our village, our family, and our small area. Then we grow older and we realize we're part of a larger community, like a city. Maybe we're in a small town, but it's near San Francisco. It's a little Corte Madera, it's part of San Francisco Bay Area. Right. And then we leave that area and we realize, oh, we're part of a state called California that's part of a larger country called the United States. Right. So for the Andean people, you resonate not only with that group of humanity, that human group of your village, your city, your region, your country, but all the nature beings in that place. So from the Andean point of view, when we are born, we have a human mother and father, and we have a mother water and father mountain. So we actually have 4 parents. If you think about that, a quaternity of our foundational identity, that we are literally, physically, viscerally, psychologically, and psychospiritually founded in nature, as part of nature. We have our human mother and father give us our DNA. They give us our body. And if we're not adopted, they give us our language, our culture, our psychological makeup, our personality, if you want. But it's our Itu Apu and Pacarina, our nature, mother, and father, who hold our connection to our original source, which they call the guiding star. And this original source energy, our connection to our nature mother and nature father, is what gives us the possibility to achieve our destiny. They actually hold the wisdom and the living energy of our destiny. So one of my most beautiful teachers, well, they're all supremely beautiful, Don Umberto Sonco and his wife, Doña Bernardina. They are a couple, probably one of the most famous couples of Q'ero Nation healers. We lost Doña Bernardina about 4 years ago, sadly. But Don Umberto is still teaching with us on our faculty. And Don Umberto says, without your connection to your Itu Apu and Pacarina, your nature mother and father, your power as a healer is pretty much zero, which is like quite a wow, that's quite a statement. But from his point of view, you can understand it, because for them, all of their healing power comes from their ability to call to the nature beings and receive the living energy as sources of healing, as sources of living energy that come through them and then are transmitted to the person who needs healing. And all healing is seen as a lack of nectar, the nectars of nature that we need to continuously irrigate our beings, our bodies and our spirits and our energetic structure. And that is the foundation of our health. So that is how they perform their healings, by being directly connected and able to channel the living vital forces of nature to gift that to whoever's coming to them for healing. And after working with Don Umberto for 20 years, well, actually, after working with him for about 10 years, I had this amazing experience of being able to to ask him, Don Umberto, you've healed people all over the world. What's the biggest issue you see? What's the problem that most people have? And he said, they're not connected to their Pacarina and Itu Apu. I don't know why. I don't know how is this possible, right? So strange for him that you wouldn't automatically be connected to your nature mother and nature father. And when I told him, wow, a lot, people in the West don't even know that they have a nature mother and nature father, he started to cry. And he said, I can't imagine how painful that would be to not know your nature mother and father, to not feel their love, to not know how cared for you are by them, to not have that as the basis of your understanding of who you are. And that's when we started and he said, everybody come here right now. This was a big group that was coming for healings. And he said, everybody come right here right now. We're going to do the ceremonies to connect you to your nature mother and father. And that was in about 2008. And so working with the Q'ero and seeing, if you spend time with them, I'm sure many of the people listening with us today know the Q'ero, and you're around them, you feel them, you feel their happiness, you feel the wholeness that they carry. And think about this, they have been tending to their bubble of living energy. All of their words in the Quechua language you have the capacity to speak about and describe human experiences of living energy. So the human energy field they call the pokpo, which means the bubble. So they grow up having their bubble tended to at all times. So can you imagine these people that live up in the mountains with almost nothing? There's no electricity, no running water, no stores, no civilization as we know it. No doctors, no pharmacies. All they have is really is nature as the healer. So as you can imagine, I don't know how we're doing on time. Jim, help me if I need to start wrapping it up. But because of this—
Oh, you're good. Take your time.
Okay, great. Okay, so because of this lack of anything else, they became these supreme experts. And through their ancestral knowledge, uninterrupted ancestral knowledge, they became these experts in how to receive healing directly from the forces of nature. Yeah. So that is their specialty that they continue to work with. This goes to their farming. They have a whole collective, some of the practices that we've adopted here on my farm in Hawaii. We grow some of the most delicious coffee on the planet, I have to say, and macadamia nuts and 12 varieties of avocados. But making offerings, there's a group of people in the Q'ero Nation that each year, it's a rotating group that are elected that will keep the ceremonies, that will be making the offerings to each of the crops, to Pachamama. So not only is there this tremendous tending to the soil in their own organic practices, they leave their fields fallow for 6 years and bring the animals to fertilize, and they have all these, ancestral practices of working with the land. The Incas developed food to be, number one, nutritionally valuable to the human being, and second, to taste good, but first, to be empowering to the human body. That's why you have foods like quinoa, kiwicha, these, superfoods. That the Incas were incredible agricultural artists, I would say. And so the Q'ero have this knowledge, they have this point of view, and they also ceremonially keep this beautiful aini with Mother Nature in their farming as well. So this gives another level of nutrition to the food when it's tended to in the spiritual level. Just like our bodies, if a child has an accident, a shock, a susto, what they call in a lot of Latin countries, they say a little bit of your living energy, your life force can get knocked out of you. And you need to recall that. You need to bring that back. So imagine us in the West who have numerous traumas or shocks over our lifetime, but no one tending to it on that level, on the energetic level. So in the Q'ero villages, the moms, the dads, the nieces, any child, actually the trauma of childbirth is immediately tended to with ceremony for the mother and the child, calling the living energy, the life force that may have been disrupted due to the shock of birth, the shock, the pain, whatever, however you want to describe that, the trauma. The life force is tended to, they call that living energy back. It's called animo wahai. So that's another thing that we learn and teach in the Global Paqo School. So all of this beautiful knowledge that's been maintained by the Q'ero, we want to continue to teach. And because of the pandemic, I mean, it's a crazy kind of beautiful benefit of this. We couldn't bring people to Peru. Our Q'ero elders, who a number of them, about 55 families, moved from Q'ero Nation down into Cusco, suddenly they're in Cusco. They've been there maybe 10 years because so many people are interested in their knowledge. Suddenly they're there. It's a pandemic. They have no way of earning money in a place where you need dollars or money or soles. And a lot of them moved back up to Q'ero because you don't need money there. But the ones whose kids were already in the school system, and they want their kids to be able to be connected to the modern world as well. So there was a terrible problem for them. So we realized, wow, this is the perfect opportunity. And I have to say, following my own inner guidance about 4 years ago, Pachamama said to me when I was in Peru, you have to open the Pachamama school. And this was terrifying. I think it's always terrifying to truly follow your destiny. There's a little bit of you that has to be terrified because it's exciting and terrifying at the same time. And I felt like, well, how am I possibly going to do that? That sounds like an incredibly impossible task. And who am I to be able to do something like that? So when this pandemic hit, I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is it. We created, together with 12 Q'ero masters, these beautiful, beautiful human beings, 6 men, 6 women. Q'ero Paqos, or the women are called Q'ero Paqos, and the men, Paqos. So it's the Q'ero Paqo Yachayhuasi, which means the Global Paqo House of Wisdom, the global initiate, House of Wisdom. Paqo is the word for initiate in the tradition. And so we created that in January of 2021. We have 4 rotating groups of 3 Q'ero. And there's always 1 or 2 Q'ero Paqos in each group, of course. And they teach us. We bathe in their energy field for 2 hours a week, right, in the class. I get to do it for 6 or 8 hours a week. But each class, we have 12 week sessions, 3 of them throughout the year. And we are trained as traditional Q'ero Paqos. So they are teaching us directly. We have a spectacular translator who was himself trained by his grandfather, who was the Alto Messiah of his village. He's not from Q'ero Nation. He's from a village called Lares, which is you go to Ollantaytambo and take a left and walk through the mountains for 4 days and you get to his village. So it's very similar, but it's not Q'ero Nation. And he wanted to become a modern man. So he came to Cusco, learned English, and then found himself back with his grandfather's teachings, much to his surprise, and being a really unbelievable bridge for us. His Quechua to English translations are poetry, because the Quechua language itself is poetry, right? Just to say thank you in Quechua is urpichay sonkolyay, which means doves fly in my heart. And that is only thank you. So the language is beautiful poetry. And we are trained in the absolute traditional way. So the Q'ero are there with us every step of the way. They're the ones, it's such an honor and such a blessing to spend this time with them. Even though it's, they say we're meeting in the heart of the computer. It's so sweet. And this is oral transmission. So a lot of one of our Paqos from the school this past year said it so beautifully. She said, I love how the Q'ero teachings rearrange my being, because it's just such a beautiful way to put it. We ask them one of our kind of pointy mental questions and they tell us a story. We have this amazing encounter of kind of indigenous mind and Western mind that we're navigating each week. Yeah. And I don't think there's, I mean, I know there's never been a school with the Q'ero like this before. It's a unique kind of invention. We have students from all over the planet. The Q'ero perform the healings that you are going to learn about so that you can learn how to do them, you experience them yourselves. And yeah, it's a very beautiful way to learn. And just to literally bathe in their nectar and their knowledge and their words, just to listen to the Quechua. Yeah, and hear it translated. It's just a beautiful experience. And they are there with so much humility and grace and willingness to share with us. And they're very delighted that their authentic tradition is going out into the world. The first thing we do is the resacralization of our own landscapes. And they are so thrilled about this. They said, you guys are waking up Pachamamas, making offerings to Pachamamas that haven't had offerings in maybe hundreds of years, you know, and being able to reestablish this harmony between human beings and nature by directly encountering. The Q'ero will speak to the nature beings exactly in the same way you and I speak to each other. They are seeing, hearing, responding to the spirits of the mountains, the spirits of the water, the spirits of the trees, the star beings, the mother moon, Pachamama, in the same way we speak. So that's another thing that we learn in the school. It's called Waharikwi, is the invocation to call the nature beings. Yeah, and to call especially your own nature mom and dad. That's where it all begins. And the magic happens from there. It's just a really, really beautiful experience. So I have, let's see, what else did I want to tell you? I think so what we learn is the Misha Chakwi is the ability to formulate, is the process of formulating the Misha, right? Which is the power bundle. Misha in Quechua means marked or signaled. It's the sign to the nature beings that you are the one that knows how to speak to them and make offerings to them. So it's also a commitment to make offerings continuously. This is how we kind of pretty much address cultural appropriation. Not only are we employing directly our Paqos and paying them really well for their knowledge, but we're also we're learning to be keepers of the harmony with nature, which is something that's pretty much been relegated to the indigenous people of the earth. And I think it's certainly high time for us to start shouldering that burden with them. What could be more important in this moment than addressing the disharmony of humans in nature? So that is our job. That is what we do at the Global Paqo School. That is what you learn. The karpais are the transmissions. It literally means, karpai means irrigation. I love that. It's all farming metaphor. So karpai means to irrigate and water our inner seed. So I'll just end with the idea that the Incas say that the Q'ero nation is considered the last Inca village on earth. And they say that within each one of us, we have our Inca seed, which involves a whole 7 levels of psycho-spiritual development, that most of humanity is at that 3rd level. We really see that now. It's called the tupai, the challenge stage, that adolescence. The fourth level is what we're working on, which is to resonate our bubbles with the entire body of Mother Earth. This is literally to come into harmony with all of the living beings of the planetary body, rejecting none. So there is no one is outside of that. And there's a lot of practices to help us learn exactly how to do this. The biggest and most important practice is called huchamihui, which means to eat and digest heavy living energies. Yeah, not negative. There's no such thing as negative in this tradition. It is heavy and fine energy. So we are learning to ingest more finer energies, which is the living energies of nature, and to digest and offer the heavier energies which feed other beings. It's like being an energetic ecologist, really actually recycling living energies. That's part of our practices as well. So, okay, Jim, I think, yeah, it's totally spiritual composting. Absolutely. It's a beautiful thing because that's the only way that you can leave fear behind. If you are not afraid to encounter any kind of living energy, any kind of person, and just to give you this little tidbit, Freddie, our translator, he's a tour guide in Cusco, a mountain guide. And he had a group of international tourists at a very remote location where he was guiding. And he encountered a group of 30 armed Shining Path gorillas. He used his practice of huchamihui, of connecting himself, not rejecting them, not pushing them away in fear, but connecting to them, and began this friendship with the leader, talking to him in a very friendly way, explaining everything to him, turning around the whole relationship, completely dissolving any tension or friction by using his practice of huchamihui to connect and de-escalate any kind of conflict. And they had no problem. They spoke with each other. He shared his food and the group's food with them, and they all went on their way in a situation that could have been incredibly dangerous. So, all right. So it's a very, very practical tool, spiritual tool that we're able to use and learn to do. Yeah, helps us. The modern, I think, term for this fourth level initiation is called the overview effect, that we've heard astronauts discuss in leaving the Earth and seeing the entire planetary body as one living being. This is the initiation to the fourth level that the Incas have been working with for thousands of years, and the culture. All right. Beautiful.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much. One question that comes up was, since you're so widely read and traveled, what was it about the Q'ero in particular, as contrasted with other indigenous groups that I'm sure you've interacted with, that really drew you? Was there a particular quality they had? Was it the fact that they had kept their spirituality intact for so long and you were just curious as to what that looked like? What was the draw? What was the distinguishing characteristic?
Yeah, it's a good question, Jim. Thanks for that. I think they have a system of explaining the world that organically matches how I experience it. So I would have an experience and the Q'ero would say, oh yeah, we call that this in our tradition, right? And I'm like, what? You have a word for that? Incredible. Experiences of living energy, just what we organically feel as human beings, but words to describe it, a vocabulary of how it works and a knowledge of it just feels like the truth. It's like living as a quantum physicist in the world. We don't, when we do healings, you know, we don't leave and go to another realm. We are already in the world of living energies. And we just learn how to navigate that, how to work within it. And it feels true. A lot of people have said this to me. I'm not the only one, that they found this tradition. They felt like they came home, like this is home.
Mm. Mm. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever tradition that is for all of us, you know, that where you
Exactly.
feel like you're coming home. That's the tradition for you. Yeah. So
Exactly.
thank you. Now, a couple of questions. Kevin from Canada is asking if you would say a few more words about other examples of winged prophecy. You know, you have the eagle and the condor. They're the ravens in London Tower in England. He'd like you to just say a little bit more about the eagle and the
Yeah.
condor and other examples of winged prophecies.
Well, the prophecy of the eagle and the condor is something that's been around for, oh gosh, 30, 40 years now that people have been talking about it. I went to a conference in Mexico City, bringing people from the furthest reaches of north of Alaska, all the way down to Tierra del Fuego, the furthest reaches of the southernmost part of South America, and meeting together because of this prophecy that's shared. The Inka prophecy is different in particular because it talks about this, the Taripai Pacha, the age of meeting ourselves again, that we are at the brink of a golden age, right? That we can bring together if every culture shares its gifts. This is the way, it's called the Tukuyaininiok, the way to create this sacred exchange amongst all the peoples of the world. I mean, this is part of what we're doing with the Global Paqo School. But all cultures sharing their gifts brings about this possibility. And literally, if you can imagine this, they say that if enough people can arrive to the fourth level, this ability to resonate our energy fields with the entire earth, that creates like an energetic womb for the fifth level of humanity to emerge, who are the supreme healers, that literally they have the power to, with one touch, heal everything that's wrong with everyone, every time, no exceptions. Boom, you're better. So that's what they say is possible for humans to achieve. If we can all arrive to the fourth level, that creates like the energetic foundation for this fifth level of humanity to emerge. And it's that prophecy is echoed in other traditions. So
how
I
would
don't know.
you distinguish this fourth level overview from Ken Wilber's notion that we're developing in sort of world culture now, a world-centric perspective, that you go from egocentric to ethnocentric to world-centric. Mm-hmm. And there's very few people that are really immersed in the world-centric perspective, but that's the next evolutionary imperative for humanity to come together. And within that context, then, all the truths of the different traditions that come into a world-centric way of alignment are then honored, and the diversity is as large as your capacity to hold the whole. Is that essentially what the Q'ero were saying?
I think it's that in a very warm way, that it's very much from the heart, that this is how that it's not a mental capacity to, it's embodied. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know if that's any different than what Ken Wilber's saying, but whenever you read Ken Wilber, I don't know, I really go up here when I read Ken Wilber, but with the Q'ero, you get it all the way down in your body. It's very visceral, very physical, very embodied experience. Yeah. But yes, that's what we're talking about. And creating a warm science, right? Where science is human. There's no subject object distinction in the Quechua language. There's no way to say it. You say the computer being, you say, that's why they say we're in the heart of the computer. It's a warm perspective. It's feeling. Yeah.
Now, you learned the Q'ero language.
I speak some Quechua. I'm not very good. It's a very beautiful, very complex language. But I do speak. Quechua is spoken by about 12 million people in Peru right now, up in the Andean area. But the Quechua of the Q'ero Nation is specifically and particularly beautiful. It's a very, very poetic version of Quechua.
Yeah. Well, all those native languages, and so many of them are going extinct along with species, as the number of languages in the world is radically shrinking year by year. So I hope that the Q'ero people can keep that alive and not everybody succumb to speaking Spanish or English.
Exactly. They want to, that's the other beautiful part. I totally forgot my pictures to share with you, but maybe I can share one or two. Is that all right?
Sure.
Do we have a minute?
Please.
Okay. So in my very non-technological way, let me just show you a couple of our beautiful guys here. Oops. So this is Juan. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a really bad picture because it's really old that someone sent me. This is Don Martin Q'espi, who is one of the great elders. He died in 2004. This is me a long time ago, as you can see. And this is Juan Núñez del Prado.
We're just seeing your first picture, Elizabeth.
Yes.
Somehow it's not moving to the next one.
No, it's just oops. Yes. So that's all three of us in this picture.
You have to turn the first one up. Yeah. Turn the first one off so you can get to the second one.
Okay. Can you see this one now?
You'll have to do reshare each time, Elizabeth, on the photos.
Thanks. How about that? Can you see that one?
Not yet. We still see the first one.
Somehow Zoom has just come up with an upgrade, everyone. So we're having some Zoom issues today.
Okay, so sorry. Yeah, I turned the other one off. Not sure what else to do.
Yeah.
Okay, then try sharing again.
Okay, should I stop sharing?
You have to stop sharing.
Yeah, you have to stop sharing. Right.
There we go.
Okay.
Then you can put the next one up.
Okay, let's do this one. Oh, are you seeing it?
Yes, yeah, we see that one.
Okay, this is Don Martin.
Q'ero woman.
This is actually a man. This is Don Martin Q'espi Machacca. I actually don't know what you're seeing. I hope you're seeing this one.
We're seeing a woman with a big smile on her face and a hat.
Oh dear.
Well, sorry, maybe we should chalk this up to a Zoom experience and carry on.
All right. In any case, here we go. I wanted to show you what we also do with our program is we are training, we are encouraging the Q'ero youth to participate in the program so that they learn from their elders as we are. And when they see that people all over the world are super interested in what their elders have to say, they're more interested, you know, because it's also a problem of losing the ancestral knowledge because the kids aren't interested in it. Yeah.
So, Elizabeth, I'll put up the one you sent me.
Oh, can you? Okay, these are our Q'ero Paqos. This is beautiful. So this is 5 of our Q'ero Paqos. Is Doña Agustina on the left, Doña Monica, Doña Marcosa, Doña Manuela, and Doña Rosita. And they are beautiful, probably the most potent of the Q'ero Paqos, including all the men that I've ever experienced. A lot of people have that experience now. Because in the Cusco region, you have 12 sources of living energy that are called the Apus. These are the mountain spirits, which some of you may have heard of. And there's only one female one. All the rest are male. The female is called Mama Simona. And in 2014, she literally opened her altar so that people actually were able to discover her altar. Some archaeologists, you know, and they found a lot of artifacts there and really ancient, these medicine bundles that you see in the forefront of this picture. These bundles were found there. And the Q'ero Paqos then came and everyone started working with Mama Simona because all of her living energy opened, and her power is the ability to connect and integrate the power of all the other 11 masculine Apus, the mountain beings, the teachers. So the women have really come forward now. This is a beautiful thing that's happened fairly recently. The women teaching, initiating, and sharing their incredible knowledge. If you see their weavings here, the beautiful weavings on their shoulders, their shawls, these are the ancient Inka patterns. And this is how the Q'ero were recognized as the living descendants of the Incas, because these patterns were forbidden in the rest of Peru after the conquest by the Spaniards. But the Q'ero nation never got the memo. They never knew that they weren't supposed to make these patterns, so they kept going. And they do it literally with the invocation to literally a being like a special muse. That is, she's the holder. She's called the Capachejanusta, who's the holder of the patterns. And all these patterns have immense knowledge in them, the ancestral knowledge. They're encoded in these weavings. So it's really quite something to, and this is all done by the women, this particular kind of weaving, with ceremony offered to this nature being, this muse, this Nusta. And they say the patterns are so complex, they cannot weave them without the living energy of that muse helping them. So it's a really, really, really beautiful to talk to the women about their tradition, about how they do their work. This is a particular thing we're working on now. Yeah.
Elizabeth,
Yes.
what's the relationship of the Q'ero to sort of traditional patriarchal culture? Are they an exception, or are they by and large male dominated with, obvious exceptions along the lines that you're indicating? How does that play out in their culture? The male-female hierarchical arrangements.
Well, if you consider the fact that the entire spiritual tradition of the Andes, the Andean mystical tradition, is considered to be female. Because the biggest power is Pachamama. And there are, they have their own pre-colonial governance structures. I'm looking at the chat here. Yeah, it's a great question. And they continue to run their, if you want to talk about radical collaboration, you're talking about the Q'ero Nation. They are masters of collaborative work. Collective work is their specialty. That's how they survive. It's called Aini, right? You exchange and you go and plant everyone's fields together. It's their social structure echoes the original Inca worldview. Yes, anyone can touch anybody's personal medicine bundle. There's no restriction on that. You can open them. Actually, most tradition in Q'ero culture, the misha is kept open on the altar. Yeah. A good question if it's matriarchal or matrilineal. They say we all come from Pachamama. So, yeah. So we're all sons and daughters of Mother Earth. She's the big mama of everybody.
Now, just as a concluding question, Elizabeth, given the fact that you've known them for 35 years, you've no doubt seen an evolution of their awareness of the rest of the world, certainly,
Yes.
but also an evolution in the kinds of teachings they've been wanting to bring through. I think of the Koji people, for example, up in Colombia, who, like the Q'ero, retreated way back into the mountains and then came down about the same time as the Q'ero, basically to warn that we had to change our ways or we were heading off the cliff, which we seem to be doing with some alacrity. So my question to you is, as you've known the Q'ero, what aspects of their tradition and teaching are they emphasizing now? Are they still in a posture of warning? Are they feeling that we've passed the point of no return? Are they feeling optimistic? How would you characterize their disposition with regards to world conditions?
Well, here's the beauty. Like I said, the Q'ero never left Q'ero Nation. They've always been up there. They never retreated. I don't know why this myth perpetuates. They didn't do that. They've always been up there. They've been in that particular location because they're keepers of the vicuña, who are these beautiful little camelids that have the softest fur imaginable, softer than cashmere. And you harvest it from their chest hair, and they only live way up high. And this was the clothing, the royal clothing of the Inca. So that's why the Q'ero Nation has been up there to be herders of the vicuña and keepers of the vicuña, alpaca as well. So they've always been up there, and they never came down to warn people. They have always been open to sharing their tradition. They have the opposite historical experience of the Hopi, who were so invaded that if you go to Hopi land, you know, they're like very distrustful with good reason. Yeah, very skeptical of anybody approaching them. The Q'ero are like very open. They're very loving. They've never lost, like you said, Jim, that connection with Pachamama. So they've always been willing to share that. It's just that nobody asked them. People came, that's what they say. They say, we've always been here. We've always been willing to talk to you. No one ever asked us before, you know? And so, of course, we're happy to share with you. And they're, as I mentioned, they have this beautiful prophecy of the golden age. They are awaiting the return of the Inca. And everything that goes on in Cusco, when you see the restoration of these beautiful Inca walls and these buildings and these structures, they say these workers are making these buildings beautiful for when the Inca returns. And this time of harmony, of living in harmony with nature, that can be restored. So they, if you can imagine this, Jim, they have in all these little Andean villages, they put on a play every year of the return of the Inca. The Inca comes back, the restoration of humanity in harmony with nature. So they're expecting that. They know that's coming. If you talk to our Q'ero elders, they have these big smiles on their faces and say, just wait, it's coming. It's coming. Everything is going to be fine. It's going to be a bit of a mess on the way, but it's going to be absolute beautiful restoration.
So your understanding, Elizabeth, because I would have been reporting it wrongly based on the information I was given, that at the time of the Spanish conquest, the Q'ero never retreated up into the mountain. Your understanding is they were there the whole time, and the Spanish basically never got that high.
Right. That is the facts. I don't know where this myth came from. Someone started telling this myth a long time ago, and it's understandable. You hear it in a lot of places. But if you speak to the Q'ero, you know. I mean, they tell you. Plus, if you look at the historical evidence and the documentation, in 1949, the Oscar Núñez del Prado first identified to the outside world the Q'ero as the descendants of the Incas. That happened in 1949 at the Coyoriti Festival. And then in 1955, he led the first expedition, academic expedition, to the Q'ero Nation and started recording a lot of their myths and realized, wow, these guys have been up here. They will tell you this themselves.
Right, right. Gotcha. Well, that's so interesting. That's so interesting that they were just so far up in remote Andean mountains that they were just essentially never touched. That's good. That's good to know. That's good to know.
Until a certain moment, and this is one of their beautiful stories about their Apu and our association, that we do a lot of work in Q'ero Nation to protect the culture and to protect the authentic sharing of the culture, right? Like people know there's no such thing as an Inca medicine wheel. That's an invented tool, by blending different traditions together. But the Incas have no history. There's nothing in their culture about a medicine wheel. So the culture itself, when the Spanish arrived, they were looking for this lost city of Paititi. And so they were on these beautiful Inca trails. I don't know if you know, the Incas created these thousands of miles of roadway through the Andes called the Capacñan, the rich trails. And they were following that based on information they had about how to get to this lost city of gold, Paititi. And that's what led them through the Q'ero Nation, right? And the story is that the Apus told them, the mountain spirits told them, these guys are coming that don't mean you any good, they mean you harm. And stack up these rocks on the mountainside and we'll bring the lightning and knock them down and stop the Spanish from entering Q'ero Nation. And that's what they did. So that's how the Q'ero were not initially colonized by the Spanish.
Amazing. Good. Well, thank you for that history. Thank you for that history. And that brings us to a close. And we wanted to close everyone with just a brief exercise and blessing from Elizabeth out of the Q'ero tradition before we say goodbye to one another for today. So Elizabeth, you want to give us a close?
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to ask everybody to just take a minute, close your eyes, breathe. Enjoy that every breath you take in, you are receiving the love of nature. You are receiving oxygen that is made for you with love by the plants and the oceans and the algae of Pachamama. And as you breathe out, breathe love back to Mother Nature. Your carbon dioxide is food for other beings. This is the great exchange of life. We are biologically designed to collaborate with Mother Nature. So breathe in love with the oxygen, and breathe your love out with your carbon dioxide. And offer that with all your heart to all of the nature beings surrounding you right now. Breathe in their love, breathe out your love back to them. And as you do this, you might notice that above us is a fantastic, infinite cosmos filled with the finest living energy. So just open your bubble and receive the nectar of the cosmos, along with the oxygen filling your lungs and the love of the plants and the trees. Receive the finest living energy of the cosmos. Drink it into the top of your head. Drink it into your brain. Drink it into your throat, your heart, your lungs. Drink this finest living energy into your belly, into your hips and your thighs and your kneecaps and your ankles, and your arms and your shoulders and your fingers. Drink this finest living energy into your whole body and your whole bubble. And open the bottom of your bubble. Connect to Pachamama and offer anything that's ready to go out that you no longer need in your bubble. Allow that to follow gravity and to flow down into Pachamama. She is the great recycler of all things. She loves to receive our hucha that she can make into food for other beings. Give her your hucha the same way you would put an orange peel on your compost pile. Allow any pain or tension to flow out of your body, giving it to Pachamama with so much love and gratitude. And in exchange, Pachamama is going to give you her finest nectar. So feel the nectar of Pachamama, the most delicious mother's milk coming up into the bottoms of your feet, filling your calves and your kneecaps and your thighs and your hips, filling your belly with Pachamama love, filling your heart, your lungs, your hands, your elbows, your shoulders, filling you up. Let your brain bathe in the nectars of Pachamama. And then using our beautiful power of intention, let's create a beautiful column of living energy by joining our love with this Pachamama nectar. Send a beautiful column of living energy back up into the cosmos. Returning the Aini, returning the gift back to the heavens. Enjoy yourself as the living energies flow through you. The love of Pachamama flows back to the Father Cosmos. All right, and enjoy this with your feet on the ground, head in the sky. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, everyone. You're all invited to the after chat group. You'll see the link in the chat box. Elizabeth, if you have some time, you're welcome to join for a more informal discussion. But we'll bring the Humanity Rising session for today to a close. Tomorrow, we'll be taking up the issue of dialogue and how in our conflicted world with so many contradictions, people can come together in the spirit of authentic dialogue to transcend and include their polarities to attain higher truth. Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.
Aloha. See, there it is.